Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I just want to give my thoughts on the recent season of Squid Games. I think it was season three. I think it should have been called season 2.5, but just because it kind of literally takes place right after the ending of season two, I don't know why they call it season three if it's only like a few episodes. Anyway, this is your spoiler warning. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can just click off this video. All right, you have been warned, and this is going to contain major spoilers. So, like I said, spoiler warning. All right, don't get mad at me. Anyway, what I thought about season two, I mean season three. Damn it, I keep calling it season two because it kind of is season two, but I thought it was okay overall. It was like very like depressing towards the end. It was weird because it's like I wasn't really satisfied with the ending. Not because it wasn't necessarily a good ending. It's more so like there was a bunch of things that didn't really come to fruition, like with the detective finally made it back to the island, but it was like the last like 30 minutes before it was going to blow up, and it really didn't. I don't know, I feel like in the entire like season 2 and 3, the detective trying to find the island, that was very unnecessary. They didn't really have to put that in. They could have just left that out because it really wasn't important, and I feel like it broke up the show too much, to the point where it made me feel like really disconnected from the show after a while. That's why I kind of started to lose interest after season two. I watched season three just because I want to have like a little bit of closure. But I think I had the most closure in episode two. Was it one and two of season three? I think it was like episode two in season three gave me the most closure because that's kind of like the most that was like the emotional turning point for the entire show as a whole. Um, I think the main character was interesting. I think after a while, I get sick and tired of him going through an emotional like lapse of psychosis every other episode. Just because in season two, he's choosing to be there. Like at first, he chose to go back to Squid Games, and I know he wanted to like end the games once and for all. But it's kind of like you see what goes on here. You see they have a lot of wealthy benefactors. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself. Um, I thought him going back to this games was like very, very, very stupid. Like you were given a second chance at a better life. I don't know. I just thought it was really dumb to waste your wealth and your time and money on trying to shut this game down when honestly you really can't shut it down because now, as you saw in the last episode of season three, what was that? I think it was my phone. As you saw in the last episode of season three, they're bringing the game to America now, pretty much. So it was all for nothing. And if anything, you basically just expanded their operation worldwide. So if it, ironically, you probably made it a little bit worse now. But yeah, I think episode two was the best episode because so many of my favorite characters died in that episode, and not just like physically died, but you can see like emotionally, even the people that survived kind of died inside. Like they just weren't the same after that episode. And like even like the tension and the tone of the show overall after episode two just shifted in like a negative way. Everyone kind of felt like a very hollow version of themselves. I think the only person who was like very, I want to say, very much unchanged by the events of episode two was the old man. I think it's I don't know his name. I think his player name was Player 100. So the old man was like really, really evil in this season, like cartoonishly evil. But he wasn't. I think the only difference between him in season three and season two was that in season three he was actually scared. The pressure was actually starting to reach him a little bit. He was actually starting to feel fear and maybe slight regret, but not much regret. I think he has that what do gambling addicts have? Like that I learned it somewhere. It's like when you I think it's like a sunk cost fallacy thing where it's like you keep putting so much into one thing you think it's going to pay off at some point, and you don't care how much it costs you at the end of the day. As long as you get that prize, as long as you win, it'll be worth it. It's kind of like the ends justify the means, like because it's like you don't want to admit that you lost when you already lost so much. You are really convincing yourself that there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and it's all going to be worth it. and all this suffering will end as soon as you get it, which for him wasn't the case. I think it's just you kept digging yourself into a darker and deeper pit and you couldn't climb out of. So you were literally just at towards the end, he was just trying to make the best with the options he had, and the options he had were garbage, and it was very unstable at best because eventually the people who lasted towards the end were the people who were just like him, just as greedy as he was, except the only difference is that he's old and they were like, a lot younger than he was. And the end of the game, the last game they played was basically just a result of your overall fitness and strength. So you had like pushed everyone off the platform, and as an old guy, I was surprised he made it as long as he did too, because it's like he's very old. Like he might be an asshole, but he's still an old man. It'll be very easy to push him off this platform. Like you're just as vulnerable as the drug addict and the baby at this point, because it really wouldn't take much of a fight to push you off. But because he had this like false sense of courage or just absolute greed, they were able to overlook his old age. Like it probably didn't come up until he actually had to fight for his life, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I'm I'm kind of old, I can't really keep this up. Like these guys can beat my ass very easily, and that's not proven until like I think either the last episode or the second to last episode. And anyway, my two favorite characters in the entire show was the old lady and her son. I think both of them carried season 3 and season 2. I feel like if they weren't in the show at all, I probably wouldn't watch either season. I probably would have just ended it at season 1, just because I think they bring so much of an emotional. It's like it's a weird thing because it's like something that everyone can relate to, like the bond between their a mother and their child, and you're being put in these impossible positions where, like at times, I thought the son was being an asshole, but in all like reality, he wasn't really being an asshole. He was just trying to survive, but he was also wanting his mom to survive, and I think he has a hard time sticking up for himself and for other people, and you don't want to rock the boat. And when you're around all these greedy ass people who have no problem killing you at any given chance, and you're already a target because your mother's an old lady, so they're already trying to like gun to kill her or get her off the show. I think it's a very impossible decision. Like there's no right answer. It's kind of like which decision is the least painful to live with, and that's kind of like what they demonstrated in episode 2, when another spoiler warning, but his mother ends up killing him. And I don't know, I think that scene was so tragic because there's so many layers of it. Like I know a lot of people see it as a betrayal. I even talked to my friends about this. They see it as a betrayal, but for me, I don't see it as a betrayal. Like I don't think she hated him at the end. I think it was like I'd rather kill you than for you to kill someone else and become a monster like these people. Like I'd rather you die with your innocence than become an absolute monster. You're not going to want to kill a mother and her child, or a child, or either one. I think you only have to kill like one person in episode 2 to pass. But because like he there's a reason why he was desperate enough to kill him in the first place. It's because he didn't kill anyone yet, because he kept sparing people. He was also very traumatized and very shocked if he had to do it, but he's not a killer. His mom said it the episode before, like, you're not a killer. You used to get beat up all the time. You just stood there. And even like after he died, she would say like he would always blame himself for all his misfortune, even when it wasn't his fault. And I it's kind of just like a very tragic circumstance where, and you see it in the beginning of season 2 too as well. She says, just like leave me here, you can go, because if something happens to you, I have no reason to live anyway. You have your whole life ahead of you, yada yada yada. So even the first episode, she was trying to protect him, and vice versa. It's just like that dynamic. It's you lose either way. You really lose either freaking way. And I think the most tragic thing is that there was no world where they would be able to escape this. Like realistically, I mean, yeah, I guess if everyone voted to leave, but they were given so many opportunities to leave. And I think the thing that made season 3 even more depressing is that even with all those opportunities to leave, they still chose to stay. I think the difference in season 3 was that This time they were so desensitized to the murder and the cruelty to the point where it didn't really matter to them. Like at this point, I rather just have the money and have all this blood on my hands than to know that someone else had all this blood on their hands and come out with nothing. I don't know. Like it's hard. I don't know who was. I think in season three, because there's such a time gap between the two seasons, that it was hard for me to know like who murdered someone and who didn't murder anyone yet. Because I remember there was like the rebellion, where they like got the guns and they're shooting all the people who were in charge of the game. They were rebelling against them, trying to escape. And then even before that, there was like this massacre where one side, like the blue team or the people with like the blue circle or whatever, were trying to kill the people with the X's, and they just like massacre a bunch of them. So I feel like at that point, everyone almost had blood on their hands at that point, except for the main cast. Actually, even some of the main cast had blood on their hands because I remember they had a few of them had guns. I think the only people who didn't really kill anyone at that point was the pregnant girl, um, I forgot the small guy's name, the small guy with the bowl cut who was a drug addict in season three. I don't think he killed anyone yet, and the grandma and the son. I think those are only four people who haven't killed anyone. Yeah. Oh wait, no, the fake veteran guy. Yeah, he also, I don't think he killed anyone yet either. But yeah, yeah. Okay, so they were like the only like the basically the main cast were the only people who didn't really kill anyone yet. But it was still kind of a shock for season three because it's like everyone is kind of already giving up mentally. So like there's like a shift after episode two. Now I feel like episode two, it felt like a really long episode because so much shit happened. A lot of the main cast died in horrific ways, tragic ways, and then some things were kind of like a self-fulfilled prophecy. And you get to not only like the deaths get to you, but it's also like every character, side character, main cast, everyone, you get to see them like lose their humanity almost in different ways. And I think it's because this test challenges you to just survive. I think that's the difference. Is that the other tests you had to survive, but you had to use your wits a little bit more than anything else, and your like past life experiences and playing like little kid games. But this was just like a battle royale, basically, where many people died unnecessarily. People were like forced to betray each other, and I think the main character, I forgot what his name was. What was his name? Let me see if I can look up his name real quick. I think it's Sung Ji Hun. He like becomes a full blown psychopath by the end of season three, and you can kind of see him going through like this transformation where I think he starts to struggle with his sense of self, and not just that, he starts to struggle with his faith in humanity as a whole, and he becomes kind of emotionally paralyzed. Like he can't afford to give another fuck about another person outside of the baby that he had to protect. And speaking of the baby, like the mother, like I don't know, it's just like the way that she like fractured her foot. I don't understand how you fracture your foot going up the steps. Maybe it's because she was also pregnant, so it's just a little bit different. But I don't know. Anyway, I think that's kind of like I might make a part two to this because I haven't thought like that hardly. I haven't like thought in depth about how I feel about season three. I think season three for me it was kind of like a 6 out of 10 just because episode two kind of carried the whole thing. But outside of that, after that, it was just like very depressing. So yeah, I might make a second part to this video about the other half of season three and go a little bit more into depth about how I felt about whatever happened. Because honestly, the second half of season three was kind of like a blur. I might have to watch it again. But anyway, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments for me, and I'll get back to you. All right, I'll see you guys later in the next.